The Invincible show is a big story, with lots of plot lines and overlapping arcs, which is why it is understandable that there are a lot of inconsistencies in the show. Today, we are going down the rabbit hole to cover all the problems in the show so far. Starting out with an obvious one, Viltrumite power levels are all over the place. The Viltrumites are supposed to be god-tier warriors, but their strength levels vary wildly. Omni 1 in Season 1 is able to destroy the entire Flaxan civilization on his own. He flies through their cities in seconds, drops half a city on them, and then heads back home like it's just another Tuesday. But later in the same season, 5 zombie cyborgs are able to harass him to the point of slowing him down. One of them gets in so close that it can literally bite Nolan's face. Where is that incredible speed and strength we saw earlier? We can forgive him for decades of experience, but the Reanimate were just cyborg humans. And while they did have a lot of upgrades, most likely they were made out of steel and chrome. The same stuff that holds up entire buildings, and we've seen just how easily Omni-Man can destroy buildings when he wants to. One could say that the Reanimate are simply just that tough, but in later seasons, we see Mark shredding them like confetti with little issue. Another idea would be that Nolan might have been holding back, but why would he do that? His secret was out and he needed to find Mark as soon as possible. He literally was able to tank a super powerful laser shot in the same episode with little more than a nosebleed, so honestly, these cyborgs didn't stand a chance against him. But that's not the only time a powerful character is nerfed by the writers. That's right, we're talking about Adam Eve. Her power to bend reality to her will is awesome, except for the fact that she never uses it, ever. She is able to essentially change matter in any way she would like. She turns a bowl of fruit into solid gold, she can turn a paper book into solid glass. She's even able to increase the density of air molecules to slow down an incredibly powerful enemy. But most of her time in the show, she relies heavily on the pink energy she initially uses as a child. In the Adam Eve special, we see her turn 2 robber ski masks into solid metal instantly and hilariously immobilizing them. Yet just a few scenes later, against a much bigger threat, she only uses her pink energy and punching. She has so much power and potential even without her limiters being broken, so many issues could almost instantly be solved by Eve. Kill Cannon, turn his laser cannon hand into a water pistol. The Sequids, turn the air around them into molasses or solid steel. She could have built an entire spaceship around them in space, but she instead opted for a pink bubble. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. She could solve world hunger by turning mountains of garbage into food. Homelessness by creating entire cities of no-cost housing. She has almost unlimited potential, yet she is constantly sidelined and reduced to throwing pink stuff at the villains. Not to mention her limiters, when her limiters do break and she's able to rewrite living matter, but she does almost nothing with it. In the Adam Eve special, she mentions being able to make the 2 villains into entirely new people if she wanted to, but when she activates After Conquest nearly kills her, she opts to blast him with an energy beam. She could have entirely rewrote him into a depowered human. It's definitely one of the more frustrating problems in Invincible, but far from the last on this list. The next being that the technology of the universe is wildly inconsistent. Cecil has an instant teleporter with a global range. Mad college scientists can create full cyborgs in a sewer. Donald has been built and rebuilt so many times he's essentially a brain in a robot. Speaking of robots, Robot has multiple Iron Man level drones and is a super genius who is able to reverse engineer a cure for Monster Girl. There are invisible cloaked super SWAT teams with laser cannon technology, but cops are running around with normal guns and driving normal cars. Cities rely on technology from 2005. The jets that go after Omni-Man in Season 1 are regular military jets. Cecil is able to zip around the planet on a whim and has a secret room with a special light frequency that makes it invisible to most people. But the government still relies on jets with almost outdated technology, even by real-world standards. Most hospitals function normally with no upgraded technology. Cecil's hospital is able to bring heroes back from near death and horrific injuries. The technological disparity is strange to say the least. A trend that even continues into the spacefaring species of the universe. The Viltrumites are a super advanced alien race with godlike powers who use almost no advanced technology. Nolan tells Mark how they are almost a utopian society, while we now know that is a lie. Looking at their cities and planet, it is clear that they are super advanced, but in the whole show, we did not see them use any advanced technology. They have spaceships that can travel across the galaxy, but no planet-destroying technology, no artificial intelligence, or even drones. They conquer planets using hand-to-hand combat, no bioweapons or nuclear technology or anything else in that category. It's almost a little backwards, but the trend of alien species lacking in advances continues even further. Humans were able to create a high-tier reality-bending superhuman, but almost no one else in the entire universe has managed to do so. Adam Eve is nothing short of a god, able to completely reshape molecules and atoms on a whim. She could grow entire forests from thin air or change whole deserts to oceans or Arctic landscapes. The ones who manage to accomplish this feat are just regular old humans. In an entire universe of incredible technology and aliens who are advanced way beyond us, we are the only ones who managed to make a god. The closest anyone has come would be Alan, and his ability comes down to getting stronger when he is brought close to death. Hardly comparable to being able to rewrite matter itself. Eve is so powerful, the scientists who experimented on her had to put limiters on her abilities. But alien races with faster than light technology are unable to replicate this? The trend in technology doesn't end there either. Coming back to another issue on Earth, Cecil's budget seems to be unlimited, only when it doesn't matter though. He can clone people, build orbital rail cannons, and hire elite teams of global defenders. But then in some episodes, he claims he doesn't have the resources to help. The teleporter alone is so expensive to use that it would put the US into crippling debt every time he uses it. But when he goes up against Omni-Man, he uses it pretty freely. He has access to incredible tech and billions of dollars, probably trillions. But where does it come from? Who supplies it? Can't be the government because Cecil seems to hoard the technology for himself. If it's wealthy investors, that teleporter alone would bankrupt them in a single episode. Yet he never ceases to have an unlimited budget until it comes convenient to the plot. It's not the only plot convenience either. Let's talk about Angstrom Levy. His powers are way too convenient until the plot decides they aren't. He has access to infinite dimensions. Infinite. But the best plan he can come up with to be invincible is to gather a small handful of other invincibles? He's also supposed to be a super genius with access to infinity, but that seems to be the best option he could come up with. He had access to a universe where he already had beaten Mark. Maybe gather thousands of invincible variants. He even could have opened portals letting in multiple Viltrum empires, but instead, he is only able to produce around 20 invincible variants. Not to mention his portals and how he uses them. He could put Mark into the center of an exploding sun, but instead opts for a deserted universe that's only real threat is that it's empty and doesn't have any food or water. We know that his ego is supposed to be his downfall and that he wants to toy with Mark, but he doesn't even send him anywhere remotely dangerous to weaken him. He could open a portal to a dimension where there is a Viltrumite weakness, say in the form of a rock, throw it at Invincible speed, and he would have already won, reducing Mark to human strength and he could beat him at his leisure. He also seems to be able to open any number of portals at one time of any size or shape he requires. Just 4 portals in a cube around Mark would get the job done. Instead, he relies on small robot drones and a direct fight with Mark. His powers make him potentially unbeatable, but the story conveniently limits him to revenge and madness. The villains aren't the only ones who have problems within the show though. Robot does some really unforgivable things and the team completely forgives him, but Cecil works with former villains under strict watch and the entire team is horrified. Rudy takes a sample of Rex and clones him so that he can be put into that body. Then he manipulates the team and takes control of the Guardians. Aside from a few stern words, all the heroes including Mark are on board with the idea. But Cecil hires a few ex-criminals in a world so lacking in superpowered help that they struggle with almost every single threat posed. But the team treats him like what he is doing is unforgivable. The logic doesn't really track here. Mark's reaction is the strongest to this, so strong in fact he immediately goes on a superpowered rampage in order to threaten Cecil into putting the ex-criminals back into jail. But he had almost nothing to say about Rudy's actions earlier. It wasn't even an issue for him to think about. Rudy also worked with the Maulers, who were definitely killers. Not to mention Mark's seeming forgiveness of his dad, someone who killed thousands in their fight. But he views Cecil as worse than all that because he doesn't want to let superpowered potential sit in a cell that they would probably just break out of anyway. It's a needless conflict or shifting moral goals. Another issue related to Mark is his secret identity and how in his day and age it would be entirely impossible for him to keep. His mask, even when it's kept on his head, barely covers any of his face. He doesn't change his voice in any way, and he is seen constantly vanishing near major threats and reappearing afterwards. There's smartphones, CCTV, and news crews in universe, but almost no one has managed to find out who Invincible is. In the first season alone, 2 of his friends figure it out from just interacting with him, but in the modern day and age, no one has posted a picture of Mark's face and linked it to his real identity. It's a plot convenience for sure. No villains even seemed interested in unmasking him, like Powerplex, whose obsession with Mark pushes him to near madness. But not once in their entire interaction does he think to expose the supposed monster responsible for the death of thousands. He wants revenge, but doesn't want to know the true identity of a person he views as a monster. It's quite a small plot problem, but one that persists throughout the entire show. Moving back now to the problems with technology in the universe. Finally, we come to the coalition of planets and its many issues, starting first and foremost with the fact that this is supposedly a government of multiple planets, vast and diverse alien races. And yet they are portrayed as a band of rebel fighters. They are the only defense against the Viltrum Empire, yet they pose no actual threat to them. They have no super weapons, or special armor, or even tactics for dealing with Viltrumites. They just politically oppose the idea of the Empire. We never see them directly fight against the Viltrumites, who are only 50 in number, spread relatively thinly across the galaxy, and seemingly not interested in the coalition. They don't have any ability to fight even one of them. The coalition is able to produce Alan and his awesome recovery powers, but that is almost all they have. No fleets of super spaceships or planet-destroying bombs. Just one hero who, until he was almost killed by the Viltrumites, wasn't even a threat to them. All of these alien planets, all that combine power and technology, and they seemingly aren't doing anything of merit to even slow down the expansion and resume of the Viltrum Empire. Which brings us directly to our next big issue. If there are only 50 Viltrumites left in the entire universe, why are they trying to expand an empire? If it's for the illusion of power so that they aren't attacked or threatened, no other race poses any kind of significant threat against them, so they don't need to worry about that. Even the combined might of the coalition of planets is seen to be little more than a nuisance. If it's for power and control, then they already have that. All 50 surviving Viltrumites possess god-level strength, speed, and supremely extended lifespans. They already outclass and outlive 99% of the entire universe. They could settle on whatever planet they wanted and live as rulers for millennia. They are also spread incredibly thin, and it would be difficult to effectively rule over more than a handful of planets at any given time. Given the time it takes to travel to each planet, meet with governors and rulers, the 50 of them alone could not really enjoy any sort of benefit they should get from an empire. As there are only 50 Viltrumites, what resource or richness could they really want from an intergalactic empire? They barely need to eat or sleep. A single planet could again sustain all 50 of them as ludicrously wealthy and comfortable for millennia, so why set about to conquer the entire universe? If it's to breed and expand to rebuild the Viltrumite population, then they would be breaking their purity doctrine. And he must prove himself of being only allowed to live. Going back to resources, if it's technology and advancements they seek, we never see any of them use it. There doesn't seem to be any real goal for the Viltrumite Empire to exist other than to conquer and own planets. Sticking with Viltrumites, a shorter issue, but one that still exists in the universe. Viltrumite uniforms/costumes. Sometimes they are indestructible, other times they are just cloth. We can assume that Nolan's Omni-Man costume was built using the fabric of his Viltrumite uniform, and we see it go through a lot. It's hit by the orbital rail cannon, bitten and torn at by Reaniman, even the Immortal launches an attack at Nolan and it's still fully intact. Not a frayed seam or loose thread anywhere. Nolan even flies into space at Mach speed, and the blood covering the suit burns off in the friction heat. And the suit is still perfectly fine. But other times, like the scouting party of Viltrumites hunting Nolan on Thraxa, the uniforms are torn and shredded like paper. When Alan breaks Nolan out of the Viltrumite prison ship, the uniforms are little more than regular clothing and are torn easily. It's definitely one of the smaller problems in the show, but one worth mentioning anyway. Let's focus on a much bigger issue throughout the show. Back to Cecil. His moral compass fluctuates wildly. He is at first portrayed as a morally gray man, willing to get his hands dirty, fight the good fight by using any means necessary, team up with and employ whoever he can, no matter their history. But when it comes to stopping threats before they can become an issue, he doesn't seem very proactive. He does not go straight for the heads of lesser villains so that resources, teams, and time are not wasted on them. Cecil definitely does not have an issue with murder, but villains like Kill Cannon and the Lizard League still running around causing problems. The prospect of Cecil executing the Lizard League may sound outlandish because they aren't a major villain squad, but in the show they attacked a nuclear silo and murdered half of the remaining team of the Guardians. They were a joke squad of villains who were about to do some serious harm because Cecil's moral grayscale got a little lighter when it comes to effectively dealing with threats. something he doesn't actually seem to have an issue with, as he has several backups to dealing with Omni-Man and Invincible. And those backup plans definitely didn't seem the kind to just incapacitate so that he could lock them up. No, he fully intended to end any threat they were going to pose, but any other villain walking around killing civilians don't seem to be worth his time, or somehow deserve to live. Much like Cecil, Nolan's compass of action doesn't seem to match his character either. Why didn't Nolan deal with Cecil earlier? The Guardians of the Globe were definitely the Earth's greatest defense force and the biggest threats to Nolan. So Nolan dealt with them appropriately, or at least how he was portrayed to. He executes them in vicious, brutal style, so the man behind the Guardians should pose a similar threat, someone who Nolan also has a long history with and he knew very well. Nolan had to have known Cecil well enough that he knew if anyone could have posed a threat to his mission, it was Cecil. Yet, he does almost nothing about him. Not in the many times they interact after Nolan killed the Guardians. All those moments alone where Cecil is starting to catch on and Nolan knows he is. Why did he not deal with Cecil before trying to convince Mark to join him? Remove him as a threat. Nolan may not have been able to find Cecil in a timely manner, but he could have crippled his operation. He knew where the top secret facilities were and could have been there in an instant. One targeted attack on Cecil wouldn't have been able to muster any of the deterrence he did against Omni-Man. No kaiju, no orbital rail cannon or reanimin. Nolan has hundreds of years of military experience in conquering planets through subterfuge, diplomacy, and even outright violence. Yet for some reason, he did not even think to target one of humanity's most staunch defenders, one with access to resources and secrets that may have even posed a threat to Omni-Man and the Viltrumites. Staying with Cecil for the next plot issue as well, why does he never try to weaponize Viltrumite DNA? He has samples from Mark and Omni-Man. He now even has a handful of Invincible variants in cold storage and some of the smartest people in the world working on them, only to make them into more reanimin. It's definitely a waste of an incredible resource. He doesn't try to develop super soldier serum, or even try to clone them. Cecil has access to multiple Viltrumite bodies and DNA samples and almost nothing comes of it. Even in the comics, they prove to be completely useless. They only get a brief appearance right at the very final arc. It's never even mentioned what actually happens to them. It's just assumed that they are all easily destroyed and gone forever. Definitely out of character for Cecil, who almost always up to this point uses any and all weapons at his disposal. But now we come to the final problem in the video. Why don't any other alien planets have superheroes, or at least superpowered versions of the aliens? There, of course, are a very small handful of outliers in this rule, such as Alan and Battle Beast. But the Earth is so filled with superpowered heroes and villains, it's hard to believe that in the entire universe there are only about 5 other superheroes. The Viltrumites exist, but when it comes to outliers among them, it's only a very small handful. The heroes in the 2 instances of the Guardians of the Globe we see outnumber the entire alien hero populace by a lot. That's not even including the superhero population of the United States, and even lesser so than the rest of the world. There are hundreds of alien planets, probably thousands in the Invincible universe, but you can only count the number of alien supers on one hand. A lot of heroes on Earth are born with their powers or experimented on or have super advanced technology. This is echoed in the alien heroes we do get to see. Space Racer has access to incredible technology in the gun he carries. Battle Beast is some sort of born anomaly among his people. Alan the Alien is a result of experimentation. It's not like these alien races don't have the means or aren't willing to make heroes, they just don't. For whatever reason, the universe relies solely on whether or not they have access to a Viltrumite who isn't completely evil. And that's it. Leave a comment down below if you think we missed any problems. And if you enjoyed this video, then watch this one about everyone who could kill Adam Eve.